All right, Unit 3, the song. And this may be the single most important building block of the entire industry. Without the song, the industry just doesn't exist. It's as a songwriter once said, very famous songwriter by the name of Harlan Howard, he said, talking about country music, he said, it's three chords and the truth. And in some ways, Harlan was very, very right. He wrote tunes for Patsy Cline and all kinds of amazing people. And one of the things you, as a songwriter, you want to try and get to is something that hasn't been said. Because, let's face it, there's a million love songs. But as a songwriter, your job, or if you're a business person encouraging a songwriter, your job is to see that that songwriter comes up with a new way of saying something. And there's some really good tools like Master Writer. There's some great, important organizations and classes you can take. And we have in Colorado a thing called the Durango Songwriting Expo, which is coming up in October. Really good, fantastic stuff. There's great tools for songwriters. And this business is built upon that song. And you're going to hear in this thing a term that I use called demo. Now, you all are young enough where the idea of a demo was not really prevalent, whereas as of late as 1999, that's basically what artists did. They put together a demo coming from the word demonstration. And it wasn't a record that you planned on releasing to the public. It was a record that basically showed your songwriting. And originally it showed it to a publisher, or possibly to a venue where you might want to get a gig, or the publisher might make a demo of a bunch of your songs to take around to artists, and that would be taken around by somebody who worked in the publishing company called a song plugger. Or the publishing company might make what was called a reel, from the idea of reel to reel. And that reel was taken around to various movie studios or television studios to show the depth of the material that they had. Hey, you need a country western song, we've got country western songs. Hey, you need a heavy metal song, we've got that. You need an electronica thing, we've got that. We've got hip hop, whatever it is. They would take a collection of all of their songs called a reel and take it to movies and TV and various things like that. Times have changed. Most artists these days aren't getting signed directly from that stage of nowhere via a demo tape to somewhere. What's happening is that they're putting out the record themselves, a DIY, do-it-yourself recording. And you've seen this terminology coming up a bunch. And it's really what's going on. And some artists, very famous artists, are even deciding to, in fact, become DIY, even though they are famous. Radiohead's the classic example. About 4 years ago, they put out In Rainbows, and In Rainbows came out basically on their label and was downloaded for whatever price you wanted to pay until they put out the vinyl, which is coming back. Yay, vinyl. So as you look at this, all of the stuff we've been talking about is built upon the song. So this section, nothing in passment about it, but it's so important that I wanted to spend a little bit of time. It's a pretty easy unit, so you can get caught up, if you've got behind with other stuff, catch up on your reading. There's only one real handout, and that's Unit 3, and just make sure you really read through that. It talks a bunch about demo and this idea of a demonstration tape, but most of you all are probably going to be doing an EP or a CD or some kind of recording. And once we get to the idea of record deals, we'll really talk about whether you want to actually do a record company and do your own record company, or do a traditional deal where you sign to a small label, or you sign to an independent larger label, or you sign to a major label. We'll talk about all of those issues, but right now the important thing is the song. And realizing how important it is, and some of the mistakes that people make with demos. The classic one is that they don't think about their audience. They don't think about the quality of the recording. One of the other hard things to work around is if you're an artist that has a band. As a collective, you all come together to play music, and maybe you write songs together. and you have no agreement about who owns those songs. We'll talk heavily about that towards the end of the course when we get into band agreements, because the most common thing I deal with is people who have gone through this program and they all of a sudden go, gosh, we kind of forgot to do a group agreement, and now the bass player is leaving and he doesn't want us to use any of his songs. What do we do? You're going, yeah. So don't do that. Make an agreement with your compadres, male, female, whatever they happen to be. Make an agreement that says this is what's going to happen. We'll talk how to do that. We'll explain how to do that. These are all issues that come up, and they really all start from the song itself. Who wrote what parts? All of those things. We'll get into that with publishing. This part just deals with that sort of basic issue of the song and getting it down and getting it recorded and the classic mistakes that people make. Just give you one that we talk about in this unit, which is if you've got a player in your group who's not really up to snuff. And that can work fine live, but once you get into the big microscope, get into the studio with the Embarrassatron, as we call it, the Embarrassatron has the ability to go, boy, I really can't play that part very well, can I? And this is true for the Beatles. It was true for just about any number of major acts that you can think of through history. There were some in the band they loved truly, and they couldn't quite cut the part. So it's an issue you have to deal with. It involves ego. Oh my God, I can't quite do this. So what are you going to do? So that's basically what we're talking about in Unit 3, which is the business side of the song. And we're dealing with it as the first of the major building blocks that you really have to have in a career. It's important because out of that, as I said, is going to emanate the whole rest of the question on the business side of things. So read this, think about it, and we'll talk about it in the chat room. Take care.